Item 3, a motion standing in the name of Ms. Poh Li San on Towards a Low Carbon Society.
Ms. Poh Li San.
Mr. Speaker, sir, on behalf of the Government Parliamentary Committee for Sustainability and the Environment, I beg to move that this House calls for the government to enhance green financing, create more green jobs, and strengthen corporate accountability in partnership with the private sector, civil society, and community to advance Singapore's inclusive transition towards a low-carbon society. This motion builds on an earlier one, which the GPC moved a year ago, on measures to accelerate efforts to mitigate and adapt to climate change. The House had a wide-ranging discussion on climate issues, viable policy changes and proposals, and the trade-offs for our economy and jobs, among other concerns. Since that debate, the government had released the Singapore Green Plan 2030, launched new initiatives by the Green Finance Industry Task Force, and completed a study on establishing Singapore as a carbon services hub. Last month, in the inaugural Skills Demand for the Future Economy report, Skills Future Singapore identified job roles requiring green skills and curated the corresponding training courses. Despite the enormous strain on our national resources to battle the COVID-19 pandemic, our ministries and government agencies have been pressing ahead to make the transition to a low-carbon society a reality. And I wish to take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the ministries and agencies for their hard work during this very difficult period. I am heartened by my fellow members' support for mitigation measures and their commitment to sustainability. The green sector is developing rapidly in response to the climate emergency. Indeed, there are many new and exciting opportunities in the green economy, particularly in green financing, and many new jobs in the sustainability sector. On the other hand, the GPC is also concerned about the lack of standardization in accounting standards and the problem of greenwashing. Hence, we are appealing for the firm hand of the government to strengthen corporate accountability. And central to our transition to a green economy, our priority is to ensure Singaporeans are not left behind as the world progresses towards a sustainable future and economy. We need to create fulfilling opportunities in a region with a growing sustainability sector and equip Singaporeans with the relevant skill sets and experience. We need to help our businesses get ahead of the curve in sustainability. For today's debate, I would like to share some general observations on Singapore's green efforts and my views on green jobs. My fellow colleagues in the MSc GPC will also share their concerns and recommendations in the three areas of green financing, green jobs, and corporate accountability. Ms. Hanny So will join me in speaking about jobs in the green economy. Mr. Don Wee and Mr. Gan Tian Poh will share their views on green finance and carbon trading. Ms. Nadia Samdin will address the issues of green finance and challenges in ESG auditing. And finally, Mr. Louis Ng will share his views on the carbon tax and the carbon net zero goal. In addition, several members of the GPC for Trade and Industry will also be joining this debate. They will share the green aspirations as well as the concerns from the business community. They will discuss how Singaporeans can seize opportunities in this new pillar of growth, the trade-offs between environment sustainability and economic sustainability, as well as the importance of upgrading skills and transforming jobs for inclusive transition to the green economy. Environmental scientist, NMP Professor Koh Li San, will also be speaking about the importance of carbon offsets. Last Friday, the Young PAP, or YP, published its second paper on climate change entitled Developing a Green Ecosystem. Many of us share deep concerns for our environment and for Singapore's future. We hope to have the support of the whole House on this critical topic. Now, before we all dive into today's debate, let us recap some facts to better appreciate the scale of this climate crisis. Let us reflect and take stock of the measures that have already been implemented to set the context for productive discourse. Firstly, Singapore contributes about 0.1% of global emissions. Therefore, it may appear that any impact from reducing our carbon emissions is correspondingly limited. Notwithstanding, fighting climate change is a global effort, and we should all continue to do our utmost to reduce our carbon footprint as a nation, as organizations, and as individuals. The question here is whether we can make a bigger impact in the global community. How can we contribute more to the global efforts to reduce carbon emissions? And the answer lies in our role as an enabler, intermediary, and facilitator. We can build on our existing infrastructure as a global financial hub to serve the region as a green finance hub and carbon trading center. As a green finance hub, we will be able to bridge international capital with green solutions and innovations from different parts of the world, facilitating efforts to reduce carbon emissions far beyond our shores and in magnitudes way beyond our own. This is how we can punch above our weight and continue to contribute much more significantly to global carbon emissions reductions efforts. Secondly, our two main greenhouse gases contributors are from the industry and power generation at 46.7% and 38.9% respectively. Manufacturing contributes 21% to our GDP, the largest sector by share, and employs almost 500,000 workers. We are also the world's fourth largest global exporter of high-tech goods, producing 5 of the world's top 10 drugs. Despite our size, Singapore is actually one of the world's leading energy hub and chemicals hub. To cut industry emissions, the government and the private sector will need to work closely together to help industries transition into the green economy with customized solutions to address specific industry needs. For instance, Jurong Island Oil Hub will be transformed into an energy and chemicals park that operates sustainably. Green technology will be vital in the transition to manufacture more sustainable products that are also produced with better energy efficiency. Green finance will be essential to fund these new technologies and businesses, and with these new economic activities, there will be creation of new green jobs. However, going green will impose additional costs to businesses. To sustain this green journey for the long haul, we need to strike a fine balance between environmental sustainability and economic sustainability. And different types of businesses will need different time frames to transit and transform. Some businesses will need more time to deal with stranded assets as a result of the green transition. And we need viable and progressive transition timeframes for businesses. Otherwise, if we set too onerous targets, certain industry players may actually relocate to other jurisdictions. And instead of creating more green jobs in these businesses, we may inadvertently shift existing jobs along with their carbon emissions to somewhere else. We must also be mindful that for reasons of national strategic interests, we may need to continue certain critical activities which generate a substantial carbon footprint. One example is desalination, which is rather energy intensive. Unfortunately, we may have to make some painful trade-offs and sacrifices in order to meet our national carbon emissions commitment. Thirdly, more than 95% of our power generation is from natural gas. which is still a form of fossil fuel. The reality is that Singapore faces severe constraints on the production of renewable energy. We have neither hydropower nor geothermal energy. Our wind speeds are not fast enough for wind turbines, and we don't even have enough space to mount more solar panels. Even as we step up the installation of solar panels on rooftops and over water reservoirs, the solar energy we make will only meet about 3% of our total electricity demand in 2030. In contrast, our neighboring countries have abundant renewable energy resources. The government is already working to import renewable energy from Malaysia, Indonesia, and further afield, Australia. Well, if all goes well, we will get around 30% of our electricity from low-carbon sources by 2035. Indonesia, for example, will be a very valuable collaborative partner. It has already committed to making sustainable development a key focus. Presently, renewables still comprise a small part of its energy sources at 11%, and there is much room for its geothermal, hydropower, solar, wind, biofuel, biogas energy supplies to grow. It has set for itself the goal of almost doubling renewables in its energy composition to reach 23%. Similarly, Malaysia plans to increase the share of renewable energy in its installed capacity to 31% in 2025 and 40% in 2035 under its power generation plan. Renewables now contribute 18% to Malaysia's energy mix, with hydropower accounting for 86% of its renewable capacity. The Philippines has abundant clean and renewable energy sources such as geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar. Its National Renewable Energy Program 2020 to 2040 has set a target of 35% share of renewable energy in the power generation mix by 2030 and 50% share by 2040. There is much scope for our ASEAN neighbours to work together, pooling financing and engineering expertise to mitigate climate change. With our complementary strengths, we can work together to achieve our carbon commitments. A few months ago, at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, COP26, consensus was finally reached on the setup of the international carbon market. The resolution of Article 6 of the Paris Agreement was critical. Countries will be allowed to trade emissions reductions as well as assist other nations in reducing emissions without trading. Private enterprises can invest in projects to sell green energy credits. The resolution of Article 6 is extremely important to Singapore. This gives us a way out of our severe constraints in alternative energy. It means that we can use the International Carbon Trading Framework as agreed at COP26 to purchase and offset our emissions and tap into renewable energy positive resources in our neighbouring countries to meet our global carbon commitment. This will be a win-win strategy for alternative energy negative countries like Singapore and for developing countries requiring funds for renewable energy projects and for environment conservation. Mr. Speaker, sir, I will deliver the next segment in Malay language. Baru-baru ini semasa persidangan perubahan iklim pertubuhan bangsa-bangsa bersatu COP26, negara-negara bersetuju bahawa pengurangan pelepasan perdagangan dan pemberian bantuan kepada negara lain untuk mengurangkan pelepasan boleh diambil kira dalam janji pengurungan karbon negara-negara tersebut. Rangka kerja ini akan memberi kita peluang yang berharga untuk bekerjasama dengan negara-negara jiran kita untuk mengusahakan pengurangan pelepasan dan membina infrastruktur untuk tenaga yang boleh diperbaharui. Dengan berbuat demikian, Singapura akan dapat memenuhi kewajipan perubahan iklim kita dan membantu rantau ini mengurangkan pelepasan karbonnya. Untuk projek-projek ini, yang paling penting, kita memerlukan warga Singapura yang memahami budaya dan bahasa yang mendalam serta khusus tentang rakan-rakan kongsi serantau kita untuk memastikan kejayaan dan jangka hayat kerjasama transnasional kita. Oleh itu, wakil-wakil negara kita yang bekerja di setiap segmen dan peringkat pengurusan projek, kejuruteraan, sumber manusia, undang-undang dan banyak lagi perlu mempunyai kemahiran bahasa dan pemahaman kontekstual tentang cara-cara sesuatu usaha dijalankan di negara-negara jiran kita. Banyak pekerjaan baru akan diwujudkan bukan sahaja pekerjaan hijau berteknologi tinggi, tetapi juga pekerjaan kola hijau. Justru akan ada permintaan yang tinggi bagi mereka yang bersedia untuk menimba kemahiran yang diperlukan untuk jawatan-jawatan yang disebutkan tadi. I will now talk about green jobs and equipping Singaporeans to take advantage of opportunities in the sustainability sector. As we make the transition to a low-carbon society, almost all sectors will be affected and new green jobs will be created in finance, trading, technology and innovation, legal, engineering, governance, education, and more. The inaugural Skills Demand for the Future Economy report has identified more than 450 green jobs across 17 sectors, ranging from manufacturing and trade and connectivity to financial services and the built environment. Our education system will need to prepare and train Singaporeans and residents of all ages willing to learn in these areas. It is challenging in this fast evolving landscape to draw up new and updated syllabuses, recruit and prepare the trainers, and roll out high-quality courses in a timely manner to meet industry needs. Major updates and changes to course modules at our ITEs, polytechnics, and institutes of higher learning will be required. Green activities and projects should be integrated into all disciplines. Institutions can consider integrating modules that expose and equip students from different disciplines with skill sets relevant in the sustainability sectors. Arrangements for internships and apprenticeships in these sectors will have to be made, and this will require the support of both MOE and MTI. The YP paper has proposed a Green Space Academy to groom local experts in research and development and technical experts to sustain a pipeline of well-trained and specialized talents. This academy will take time to develop. In the short and medium term, the fastest way to roll out the training courses is to piggyback on our current education institutions. Modular courses will allow students of all ages to enroll and accumulate credits towards certification. This is flexible and inclusive, especially for workers looking to switch to careers to join the green economy. We should consider borrowing from the German model, which is also being adopted by the Chinese government. Young Germans split their time between classrooms at a vocational school and on-the-job training at a company as apprentices. The participation by German company is high, about 80% of Germany's large enterprises. In October last year, China's State Council issued a new guideline to have a similar arrangement to build a world-class vocational education system by 2035. For Singapore, we can implement a similar system by creating very tight and dynamic relationships between education and training institutions, research, and industry stakeholders. We should also watch out for the workers, especially the older workers, who risk unemployment if they are unable to adapt to new positions or pick up new skills during the green transition. Many green positions, even green-collar ones, may require IT skills, which may be more challenging for our senior workers with lower levels of education. So I urge Enterprise Singapore and Skills Future Singapore to work closely with the labour unions to equip senior workers with relevant skill sets for the green jobs so as to minimize job displacements as companies transit into the green economy. Mr. Speaker, I would like to address the next segment in Mandarin. 这东语呼吁，低碳社会的转型必须有包容性，而这自然必定包括我国的中小企业，他们是我国经济的支柱。政府推出了企业可持续发展计划，支持新加坡企业的可持续发展举措，并抓住绿色经济的新机遇。为该计划预留的1.8亿新元，旨在支持至少6000家公司举办培训研讨会、能力和产品开发项目，以及认证和融资等关键推动因素。我顾虑的是这个数额是否足够，以及我们的中小企业是否会受到如何申请和利用这计划的指导。据宣布，计划提供的支持将分为3个层面：第一，发展企业的可持续发展能力；第二，加强特定部门的能力；第三，培养充满活力和有力的可持续发展生态系统。许多中小企业在日常运营中已经忙不过来了，试图维持生计。那么，他们如何知道可持续发展计划与他们的相关性？设在南洋理工学院的中小企业可持续发展体验中心是一个很好的例子，可以与中小企业接触，并指导他们进行绿色运营转型。我希望当局能够执行更多此类的措施。我也想要求政府机构更加的开放，允许中小企业尝试有助于减少碳排放的创新解决方案，例如相似电动汽车充电器的解决方案，让分布在全岛的电动摩托车共享和可交换电池网络成为方便又有效的选择。像 GoGoRo 可插拔电池解决方案已经在台湾和以色列实施，并将于今年在中国和印度城市推出。这种创新和绿色的解决方案可以帮助拥有大量摩托车的公司，例如新邮局和自雇送货骑士走向绿色，而无需政府对摩托车充电基础设施进行大量的投资。我们应该反应灵敏，学习与新加坡类似的其他城市的最佳绿色时。议长先生，在我们走向绿色的旅途中，我们应该开通并愿意为新的解决方案提供机会。毕竟，能接受不同解决问题的方法是创新的必要条件，这将推动我们的技术和发展领域。Mr. Speaker, sir, the transition to the green economy is like a fast-paced mass marathon. On one hand, we are racing against time to mitigate this climate emergency. On the other, we also need to sustain this transition over the long term. Most importantly, we must work together as a closely coordinated team comprising the government, civil society groups, and the community to develop a low-carbon and green ecosystem. We hope to have the support of this House and Singaporeans to press ahead on this green journey together to build a better Singapore for our future generations. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to move. Thank you.